Always a fun way to wrap up the day here at Football Night in America. Rodney Harrison, Tony Dungy, Mike Tirico, to figure out some of the things that happened today. And one of the big items that I guess we kind of thought it could happen, we know injuries can happen. Earl Thomas, worried about getting injured, got injured. What do you make of what happened with Earl Thomas and his career going forward?
Well, I really didn't like his approach. I talked about it earlier this week. I was really disappointed in the way he handled the entire situation. If you're going to hold out and don't be part of the team. If you want to be part of the team, you have to come back and you have to be all in. And as a teammate, I could never tolerate a guy, even a guy like Earl Thomas that I have a great deal of respect for. And face it, Mike, no one feels sorry for you. You're making $8.5 million. You're still playing football. And I have a lot of respect for Earl, but I kind of lost respect for Earl because you can't cheat your teammates, you can't cheat yourself by not showing up all the way.
But why do we think he didn't show up all the way? What do you point to?
Because practice. And he's a leader, and you're getting paid for your performance, but you're also getting paid for the impact that you make on the younger players. You have a lot of young players on that team that look up to Earl Thomas, but even more importantly than the players, the kids that look up to Earl Thomas. There's a lot of young kids that really idolize him and look up to him, Mike.
I agree with Rodney. No one begrudges a teammate when you're doing business. If you say, hey, I'm holding out because I deserve a better contract, hey, I'm all with you. But now when you come back and say, I'm playing, then you can't miss practice because you have a headache. You can't miss practice because you're still upset. And don't talk about being upset, oh, and they're not paying me. Once you decide to come back, you, as Rodney said, you have to be all in every day. Let's go forward and let's go win games.
And that reaction back towards the bench, who knows what the deep, true, seated meaning of all that is. If it's the end of Earl Thomas in Seattle, I know I'm fast-forwarding this a little bit, but think about the Legion of Boom. They were really a secondary that defined what the Seahawks were all about. And Cam Chancellor and Richard Sherman a year ago and Earl Thomas all get injured there in Arizona, the place where Seattle had that Super Bowl loss that's so painful. You'll always remember what happened to the Seahawks and what could have been an even bigger run at the top of the NFL. Historically, what happened in that stadium will change the course of that history or be a big part of it.
And guys, I wrestle with this because I'm a firm believer that, you know, players have a finite number of years, they have a finite number of opportunities to get paid, and you do what you have to do to get paid. And sometimes it may work seamlessly and sometimes it may get awkward, but the bottom line is he wanted security from the Seahawks or a trade to a team that will give it to him, and the Seahawks were spinning their wheels. And, I mean, get the thing done. If you're going to trade him, get it done and let him go somewhere else and get paid, or pay him. But they had him in limbo, and he gets injured, and I think that's what the gesture was.
He wasn't in limbo. He was under contract, and he was making money.
But that trade talk was out there, wasn't it, Mike?
The trade talk was out there.
Yeah.
The trade talk, apparently it was close to a deal.
Yeah.
I just think if you're the Seahawks, you just got to make a decision and move on. And I think that's why he's angry. He kept playing, and he broke his leg.
Coach hit it perfectly. He was under contract. He signed a contract. No one forced him to sign this contract. So in the last year of his contract, he knew that he was going to be making $8.5 million.
And I used to think that, but, you know, there's two contracts. There's the contract the player has with the team, then there's the broader contract between the union and the league. And you do have devices under that broader contract if you're the player.
And they say, the team can say, hey, we don't want you, so you're not playing. He can say, I'm going to sit up. Just like Vontae Davis said, my heart's not in it, I'm not playing. And he did it at halftime, and we said, oh, that's terrible. But if your heart is not in it and you don't want to play for the team, do not play.
I wonder what a Le'Veon Bell thinks as he sits and watches this happen and then watches his Steelers for the second straight week within 7 days on national TV in a primetime game. He's one of the impact players in the league. He's worried about his future, but his present right now, he's watching those guys go on without him. And you see an Earl Thomas injury, you Understand how Bell feels, but you also understand what the totality of the 53 plus the coaching staff, the practice squad, and the front office feel about who's there. It's the guys in our room, and it's that mentality that's at odds here.
Maybe I'm just an old school guy, but I'm looking at Pete Carroll, too, and I'm a little disappointed in Pete Carroll because I know an old school coach like Coach Belichick would not allow you to come out and not practice, say the things that he said in the media. I'm just an old school guy, Mike. If you don't want to practice, if you don't want to be part of our team, I don't care who you are. We don't want you. I don't want you in that locker room.
But Rodney, Mike, and Tony, that's what Pete Carroll did that worked out there. Everybody had a little bit of latitude compared to what other teams had, and that's why it worked for Pete at USC. He told us that he learned that at USC. You need to have different different parameters for today's players. So it worked for him. So I almost say I understand why he stayed true to who he was. Earl Thomas deserved a little bit different set of circumstances for him compared to the other guys.
Mike, but it's disrespecting.
I'm not disagreeing with you.
It's disrespecting the team. It's disrespecting the head coach. He is under contract. Like Coach talked about, he has an option to sit back and say, hey, you know what, I'm not coming in. But if you come in, you have to be all in. That's just what I believe.
Le'Veon Bell, I have no problem with that. He's making a decision. He's giving up $850,000 a week for principal. He feels like he should get paid. He's making a point, and I'm with him.
And you make a good point about Bill Belichick, because Rob Gronkowski's not happy with his contract, but he is not going to fight Bill Belichick. He's just not going to do it.
Yeah.
Bill Belichick, a close friend of Mike Vrabel, and Mike Vrabel showing some real guts today with that fourth down call, the icing on the cake to beat the Philadelphia Eagles. What did you think?
Well,
of
I just look at, you know, somebody around this table, and he doesn't believe in going forward and fourth down. I'm not going to say any names.
I remember in the viewing room I said to you, I said, Rodney, what do you do? And you said, ask Coach. So Coach said, kick the field goal.
I would have kicked the field goal, but I have all the respect in the world for Mike and what he did, and that made a statement to his team. And it was a different situation than Frank Reich. If he's going to lose the game if he doesn't make it, but he's saying, hey, we're going forward. Frank Reich's situation, if he doesn't make it, he's going to lose the game, and there's no guarantee that he's going to win the game either with that play.
Well, we know he didn't go to playoffs last year. They didn't go to playoffs last year. He's not going this year. Mike Vrabel and the Tennessee Titans, well, Mike wasn't there, obviously. They went to the playoffs last year. They have a good chance of going to the playoffs. Mike, they're 3-1 in first place.
You could also argue that because they have a chance to go to the playoffs, playing for a tie would have been smarter, because it could help you with tiebreakers down the line. But he's also sending a message and setting a foundation.
But former players, they would rather lose the football game than walk in with a tie.
And you guys made the point. I'm sorry, Mike. You got to think differently about overtime, the way these games play out. If a team comes down and kicks a field goal, you're almost milking the clock for that entire last drive, and we're starting to see guys react to what's happened the last couple of years.
And Mike, think of it. Andrew Luck, he passed for, 464 yards and 4 touchdowns. So this is like, why not go for it?
And back to Vrabel, I mean, he told me after the game, he had promised his players all week, we're going to be aggressive, we're going to be aggressive. So when he's in that moment, there's no decision to be made. He had written the check throughout the week, and the players love that. The players love it. And Vrabel, I said, did you give any consideration to what the criticism would have been if you hadn't done it? And he said, it never even crossed my mind.
Who did he beat? He beat Philadelphia. Philadelphia is the team that has people thinking about this, be aggressive fourth down.
And that's where Frank Reich came from.
There you go.
Philadelphia.
The Buccaneers beat Philadelphia a couple of weeks ago with Ryan Fitzpatrick at quarterback. But, boy, it fell apart in a big way. The non-refundable tickets, too bad for the folks at Foster's Barbershop. 2 weeks to pick up the pieces of this one. It looks like it's time to go with Jameis Winston.
Well, I think that's what's going to happen. And because they have a bye week, they can now, which is smart, because to me, the reason why you didn't play Jameis, yes, Fitz was playing really well, but Jameis hadn't practiced in a month. Well, now you've got a week and a half to get things going. You can have regular training camp type practices. You can get him going again. And as Coach Cutter said, this is the time to regroup. Everybody had a bad game. So I think you start from scratch and get Jameis back in there.
And think about it. I mean, if I would have told you, Mike, that the first month of the season that Ryan Fitzpatrick would have came out and would have gone 2-2, you'd have been like, you know what? It's pretty good, right?
About what they
with our
expected.
starting quarterback coming back. So I think Brian did a great job.
You know what the takeaway from that game is? Chicago's good. Chicago's good both sides of the ball. If you talk about teams you trust through a month of the season, trust Chicago right now.
That Khalil Mack trade was huge because, you know, it gives them some just defensive firepower and muscle and confidence. Hey, we can go out and we can get after people.
Just think about it. You're getting probably the second best defensive player in all of football on your team, just like that. You're already a top 10 defense. Now you're one of the best.
And you take away what Aaron Rodgers managed to pull off second half of that Week 1 game, the Bears are 4-0.
That's right.
And they may keep rolling. All right, we're going to keep rolling. Thanks for your time, and we'll do it again next week.